Hello, and welcome to my presentation on the preservation of Japanese illustrated hand scrolls. Here is a brief introduction of my presentation. To start off, I will explain the history of Japanese illustrated hand scrolls. During the 11th to 16th century, painted hand scrolls called ikemono, or maki, flourished as an art form in Japan, depicting battles, romance, religion, folk tales, and even stories of the supernatural world. The illustrated hand scrolls have traditionally been a format that is particularly suited for narrative paintings. Like a book, a hand scroll is an intimate object that is held in the hands and is ideally viewed by only a few people at a time. Composed of sheets of paper or silk joined horizontal and rolled around a dowel, hand scrolls are unfurled or one segment at a time in sections about 2 feet long. Beautifully inscribed with calligraphy and intricate painting, emaki were primarily commissioned by the elite, such as the imperial family, the shogun, or monks from wealthy Buddhist temples. The calligraphy and painting were generally done by official court painters. The text usually precedes the illustration, although in some cases it may be interspersed within the images. The size of Japanese hand scrolls. Japanese hand scrolls can reach up to 40 feet in length. Although their dimensions vary, the standard height is approximately 1 foot, but they may be much larger or smaller. The making of Japanese hand scrolls. Scroll paintings created on silk or paper appear in 2 formats, hand scrolls and hanging scrolls. Hand scrolls were originally used to circulate Buddhist texts, with early examples dating back to the Nara period. Though influenced by Chinese culture, they developed into a distinctly Japanese form. Unlike the vertical hanging scrolls, imakemono are horizontal. Composed of a series of scenes rather than one entire scene, these hand scrolls may be painted in many colors or only in black ink. They are usually created by joining together several dozen sheets of paper or occasionally silk. A cover is attached to one end and a roller to the other. Imakemono vary in size, measuring an average of 30 centimeters or 1 foot in width and 9 to 12 meters, 30 to 40 feet in length. In most cases, a single story is portrayed in 1 to 3 scrolls. Traditional paintings from Japan consist of ink, color, ground pigments, and/or gold applied in thin layers on a paper or silk support. Though beautifully designed and aesthetically appealing in themselves, the screens and scroll support are also intended to serve the function of protecting the pictorial image or calligraphy. Handling practices for Japanese hand scrolls. I attached a YouTube video from the Smithsonian National Museum of Asian Art that is really interesting and shows the proper way to handle Japanese hand scrolls. I recommend viewing the video. Handling and storage of scrolls. Scrolls require utmost care when handling, viewing, or storing. Periodic examination is a sound preventive measure for ensuring the well-being of your scroll. Dirt and sweat can transfer to and mark paper, silk, wood, metal, and lacquer. For this reason, cotton or nitrate gloves are recommended, especially when handling lacquer components. When in storage, the painting itself is several layers removed from immediate view, and the value of a scroll is reflected in part by its packaging. Scrolls are generally kept in individual wooden boxes that bear an identification label. When removing the lid, the viewer will find the scroll wrapped in a piece of silk, and unwrapping the silk encounters the handroll bound with a silken cord that is held in place with a jade or ivory toggle. After undoing one, begins the careful process of unrolling the scroll from right to left. Pausing to admire and study it, shoulder width section by section, re-rolling a section before proceeding to the next one. The conservation for Japanese hand scrolls. Again, another video from YouTube from the National Museum of Scotland showing the proper way to conserve a hand scroll.
Hand scrolls are very long, and this one is made of 10 sheets of paper that have been joined together end to end. Each one of those has been backed with a lining paper, and then another layer is applied after they've all been joined to create this continuous roll. A hand scroll is repeatedly unrolled and rolled, and over time this causes creases and weakens those backing paper layers. So every 100 years or so, the whole thing has to be dismantled and the backing papers are replaced. The previous lining paper was carefully removed in a very slow and meticulous process. Hand scroll paintings are rolled up and stored away for most of their existence, so the pigment, the colour in this was very well preserved. There was some danger to the pigment that it could flake off and be lost, so there was a very careful process of fixing the existing pigment back to the surface of the painting. The conservators who carried out the work on this painting used traditional Japanese tools and materials throughout. For example, glue that's made from deer bone and paste that has been aged for 10 years. Once all of the 10 sections have been reassembled and it's returned to the hand scroll format, it needs to be supplied with a new cover silk, which was sourced from Japan, and also a box made of paulownia wood for it to be stored safely.
The repair, treatment, and reformatting of scrolls. In caring for aging scrolls, it is important to be familiar with their materials and matter of construction. Scrolls are complex objects that consist of multiple layers of paper and silk. They may be configured in a vertical hanging format or as a hand scroll that is viewed horizontally. Once the screen or scroll is in place, look for surface anomalies in the paper, silk, and media. If you discover the surface of your scroll or screen needs to be cleaned, you can safely do so using a soft, natural fiber brush, such as a hockey brush. Do not use commercial cleaning products or abrasive materials. Japanese scrolls have a long tradition of being remounted. Backing with paper and silk borders are often replaced when they wear out. It is obvious that a scroll is compromised by tears, punctures, bubbling, severe or repeated breaks, increases, or separation between the layers, or active flaking or loss of the medium. You must please contact a conservator who specializes in the conservation of the Asian paintings for assistance and consideration of the next steps. Inherent vices and deterioration. Scrolls are susceptible to damage as a result of environmental factors, both on display and in storage. These vulnerabilities to a scroll include formation of creases as well as abrasions to media from repeated rolling and unrolling. Creases may also form as a result of squeezing the scroll or tying the cord too tightly. Surface dents occur when there is inadequate support while handling. Bubbling within the surface, most often apparent on the backside, is due to improper mounting procedures. Due to their largely hollow core, screens are susceptible to tears and punctures. Prolonged exposure to light, direct or indirect, can cause media and silk to fade and paper to darken. Top priorities for preservation. Recognizing the causes of deterioration and keeping proper records with photographic documentation are the first steps towards proper preservation of ancient paintings and scrolls. In museum standards, the scrolls are classified as sensitive, and that this categorization determines the recommended maximum length of time that the work should be displayed. Sensitive works are recommended for shorter display periods of up to 6 months, and then rested in storage for a minimum of 2 years before considered suitable for display again. This helps to reduce the light exposure to the work and will minimize fading. This will help make sure the gallery can give the work a long life as well as sharing with them with audiences many years into the future. Here are my discussion questions. Discussion question number 1. You are the curator at a major art museum and have been asked to exhibit a rare Japanese illustrated hand scroll from your special collection. How long should you display this sensitive work in the exhibit? How long should the hand scroll stay in storage to rest before being displayed again? Discussion question number 2. Have you ever had the experience of seeing a Japanese illustrated hand scroll in person? If so, where did you view the Japanese hand scroll? Was it in a museum, a library, etc.? Thank you for listening and viewing my presentation on Japanese illustrated hand scrolls. It was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to hearing your responses.